Hey y'all, it's your Missniecytv and I'm here to review for Sistas Season 10, Episode 11. The episode picks up with Fatima talking to Mr. Keys about what she overheard about Mr. Keys being Zach's father. She's like, every day that I have to keep the secret from him, it hurts me. Fatima, you're keeping more secrets from him than just this. Actually, dangerous secrets. Mr. Keys is like, you wouldn't understand. Fatima's like, every time somebody gets caught in a lie, they say you wouldn't understand. Fatima's like, well, help me understand it. Then Mr. Keys is like, it's a lot to explain. Fatima said, well, you can start by explaining it to Zach, because if you don't explain it to him, I'll definitely tell him myself. Mr. Keys is like, I'll definitely tell him in my own time. Fatima's like, you don't got that much time. Then Zach comes downstairs, and he's like, what were y'all talking about? Because he could feel the tension in the room, and something was off. Fatima gets up, she kisses Zach and tells him that it was nothing, and she leaves to go head out for work. So when Fatima heads up, Zach keeps pressing Mr. Keys about what Fatima was asking him, and he's basically like, well, she was just asking me how long have I known you. Zach is like, she's been acting pretty weird. She keeps asking me to ask you questions about my sperm donor. Mr. Keys is like, well, he was a good guy. Zach is like, how could he be a good guy if he left me with somebody that's a crackhead? Mr. Keys tells Zach that Gladys wasn't always like that. Well, if you know much about how she was before, why don't you just tell him the truth? Y'all can have this conversation. Y'all could probably work something out, but the more you sit in his face and try to lie to him and don't tell him who you are and try to get along with him, it's gonna be worse for you. Why don't you just tell him the truth? Because Zach hates people lying to him, because that's all his mother did. And now that he knows that his father's doing it too, it's going to be even worse. But Zach doesn't want to talk about that conversation anymore, so they switch it over to the mentor program and everything that the kids need. At the salon, we have this disgruntled customer come in, because she said that Karen told her a week ago that she would be able to squeeze her in and do her hair, because she has an engagement to go to. Pam was like, well, you're not on the book, so I don't think we can help you. Everybody up in there needs to learn how to talk to customers, but I don't know. Pam just didn't call Karen and confirm what the lady said instead of going back and forth with her. So Danny and Maurice come up to try to de-escalate the situation. The customer, who's played by B. Simone, is like, who are y'all and why y'all talking to me? Danny and Maurice is like, we're the owners. B. Simone is like, well, which one of y'all is going to do my hair? Maurice is like, I actually can't. I have a license in cosmetology. Pam and Danny are like, why didn't you tell us this before? I didn't know he had a license in cosmetology either, and apparently he went to school for fashion too. He's a very well-trained person. Then he does end up doing B. Simone's hair, and it turns out really nice, and she tells him, I'm booking with you the next time. Maurice is like, oh no, you're not. I'm just the owner. I don't do hair. Pam is like, you know what? I'm putting you on the books. Maurice looks at Pam like, what'd you do that for? At this point, I just hope that Cheyenne's license credentials come in and she'll be able to work so that they don't have to run through these problems again. Over at the gym, we see Tony talking to Rich, and they're basically talking about Danny and Sabrina and everything that went on in both of their relationships. Rich is getting on Tony about him still loving Danny after everything that she did. He also brought up the fact of how can you still want to be with someone who doesn't even like your kids. While that statement is true, Tony's kids don't have any home training or respect for adults either, because he doesn't have any authority with them. Tony basically deviates from that part of the conversation, and he's like, just know that I need to be there for Danny. I still love her and I still care about her. Just know some things happen and I need to be there for her. He's like, let's talk about Sabrina for a moment. Not even 24 to 48 hours after you broke up with Sabrina, you go sleep with Penelope. That's probably why she got so mad, because she thought that the two of you were sleeping together the entire time. So they finished this conversation, and this is when Madison walked up. Rich introduces Tony to Madison. They have a conversation about everything that's going on with the gym and the improvements that need to be made. Madison walks away, and Rich continues to look at her, and Tony peeps what Rich is doing, and he's like, just admit that you like her. Rich is like, I don't even like her like that. I just think that she's cool people. Rich, it's okay for you to move on and like somebody else. I definitely do think that Tony will be the one that introduces Danny to Matt. Over at the law firm, we see Fatima coming into Andy's office to bring her the file that Fatima left at the house, right? So Fatima just comes in to bring the file, and Andy notices that there's something wrong with Fatima. Fatima basically lets Andy know that she found out something about Zach and she doesn't know how to tell him. Andy's like, well, it must be really big for you not to open your mouth, because you always speak your mind. Fatima's like, yeah. Andy's like, so what is it? Fatima doesn't really say nothing in the moment, and then she eventually reveals that Mr. Keys is Zach's father. Fatima tells Andy that she wants to tell Zach so bad, but Mr. Keys told her to wait. Fatima lets Andy know that she wants to tell Zach so bad, but Mr. Keys said not to because he wants to tell Zach in his own time. Andy's like, well, you should just listen to your gut and tell him anyway. Andy's like, wow, that's a lot to take in. Fatima's like, well, do you think he told your mom? Andy's like, no, because they just got acquainted, so I don't think he told her. I don't think Mr. Keys would tell her that anyway, because he'd be scared that it would get back to Zach through Andy. But while they're talking, Andy gets a call from Danny, and Danny's basically telling her that she needs to come in and talk about Sabrina and the power of attorney situation and how everything's gonna go with that. Fatima tells Danny that she'll be able to come in because Andy's schedule is clear. Then Danny tells him everything that's going on with the salon. She also lets him know that Maurice is licensed in cosmetology. They was like, girl, you lying. In Hayden's office, we see him call Cheyenne because he basically wants to go out with her again. And she's basically like, that would be a conflict of interest. Hayden's like, well, you knew that when you went out with me the first time. Cheyenne was like, maybe that was just to prove a point that she can't dictate who I go out. Hayden's like, you used me then. Cheyenne is like, everybody uses everybody, Mr. Moss. Hayden, let's be for real. You're very excited that Cheyenne used you. As long as the woman's pretty, you don't care who uses you. Hayden has the nerve to say, maybe you could be the glue that puts me and Andy together. Cheyenne knows that this man is just talking to be talking. Hayden even missed that he was. He just said, I said it because it sounded good. Cheyenne doesn't tell Hayden that she won't go out with him again. She just calls him and says she'll let him know. Hayden's like, you serious? Cheyenne is like, yeah, I'll let you know. Hayden, I hope one day you realize how thirsty you sound when it comes to women. Back over at the law firm, we see Danny come in to talk to Andy about the whole Sabrina situation and how she's actually not the correct next of kin. She's only the next of kin when it comes to work stuff, not medical decisions. Danny's like, I just don't like that people that don't even know her are making medical decisions for her. Danny's like, I don't even feel comfortable doing it because I don't even make right decisions for myself. Danny asks Andy if she would do it, and Andy's like, I don't think I could do it. Danny's like, you see, it's a big decision. Then they start going through all the relatives that could possibly help Sabrina. Some time passes and the conversation switches from Sabrina to Danny, and Andy asks Danny how she's doing, and Danny's like, I'm doing the best I can. And Andy's basically like, I understand that, but I also feel like you're keeping something. Andy really wants to know who essayed Danny, and Danny's basically not saying anything. Andy's like, you really need to press charges against this person in case they come back. Danny's like, they won't come back. Andy's like, how you know you have to keep constantly looking over your shoulder? Danny, you know that man's coming back, because you still have his number in your phone. You haven't even blocked him. And little do you know, he's been stalking you outside your house. Andy brings up the fact that she knows that Sabrina was Danny's go-to person for situations like this, but she also lets Danny know that she loves her and she's always there for her. So Danny's just looking away and avoiding Andy, and Andy's like, I know what that is. We learned that in law school when people want to avoid questions and not answer a statement. Over at Andy's penthouse, we see Cheyenne, and she has a bag, and she pulls out the contents in the bag, and she's making her some lean. As she's making the lean, her mom calls, and Cheyenne is like, y'all really have hidden cameras around here? Valerie basically asked her how Andy and her were getting along, and Cheyenne is like, we're getting along fine, we're not pulling each other's hair out. Then Cheyenne lets her know that she could possibly have a job at a hair salon. Valerie's like, that's good. Back over at the law firm, we see Fatima in the conference room, and she gets a call from Zach. Zach basically asked her how she's doing. Fatima tells him that she's deep in work, and then they have a nasty joke about that. Fatima asks Zach how did the conversation with Mr. Keys go, because she was really hoping that Mr. Keys will open his mouth and tell Zach the truth. And he didn't say nothing. Fatima's like, that's all he said? Zach is like, why are you being so hard on him? Fatima's like, because he's not being honest with you. Fatima, if you know the man is not being honest with him, why don't you just tell him the truth yourself? It's gonna hurt more knowing that he knows that everybody else is gonna know and he doesn't even know. Why would you tell Andy before you tell the person that's in the situation? Fatima, you know exactly how Zach gets when he knows that people have been lying to him. He will paint the city red. He used to continue to do it. It makes no sense. But when Zach does learn the truth, he can't really be mad at Fatima because Fatima's been trying to tell him this entire time, but Zach's been avoiding. Zach basically tells her that he knows that she threw the leftovers away, and Fatima's like, I don't want barbecue leftovers anymore. Zach is like, I can bring you something. Fatima's like, no, it's okay. Then we see Andy come in the conference room, and she tells Zach that she has to go. And her and Andy sit down and have a conversation, and Andy basically asks her, what is she doing for the night? Because Danny wants them to come over so that she could talk. So some time passes, and it's time for the girls to come over Danny's, and she's like tidying up a little bit. Andy comes in with some food because she knows that Danny ain't cooked nothing, and then Fatima comes in. They sit down and they have a conversation. She lets them know that she went to go visit Sabrina, but it's basically like it's just a shell there. It's not really her. She lets them know the reason that she called them over there is to have a sister circle meeting because they haven't done it in a while. She's like, it's not really like a sister circle anymore. It's more like a 3-sided triangle. And then she goes into, well, I wasn't really honest with y'all when y'all came over here about what happened that night, so it's time for me to be honest. Risha told me to open up more and be honest and tell the truth, so that's what I'm gonna do. And as she's talking to them, Danny gets a knock on the door. Fatima gets up to open the door. It's none other than Officer Green at the door, and I hope the girls put 2 and 2 together and look at his hair for real and notice that he has a bruise on his head. I hope the girls realize that Officer Green was the one that did this to Danny, and Fatima calls in a favor to Madam, and it gets handled. But let me know what you guys think about the episode. Please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Turn on your bell notifications. Bye!